Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. The clink of plates filled the kitchen as Ryan Harper scrubbed the last cereal bowl from breakfast. Morning light spilled through the shutters, casting warm stripes across the marble counters of their tidy Portland home. To neighbors, Ryan and Claire had it all: a decade of marriage, a charming craftsman house, and a rhythm that seemed effortless. But beneath the surface, something was fraying. Claire stood by the sink, arms crossed, her auburn hair pulled into a loose bun. At 35, her eyes flickered with a restlessness that Ryan couldn't place. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice unsteady. "I've been reading stuff, watching videos." Her friend Tara sent her links, claiming women are trapped in roles. Marriage, commitment. It's all about control. Ryan paused, dishcloth in hand, his steady gaze meeting hers. He was 39, a methodical software engineer with a knack for solving problems. But this wasn't a bug he could debug. "You want to see other people?" he asked, voice low, trying to make sense of her words. "I don't know," Claire said. "I need to figure out who I am. I've always lived for us, not for me." Ryan gripped the cloth tighter. He searched her face, but the Claire he knew seemed to be slipping away, replaced by Tara's influence, her reckless friend who thrived on drama and divorce settlements. That night, Claire left to meet Tara, brushing past Ryan without a word. He sat in the dim living room, the TV's muted glow flickering over their wedding photo on the shelf. 10 years, reduced to this. Over the next few weeks, Claire moved in with Tara. Her calls were sporadic, always the same. "I miss you, but I need this. I'm finding myself." Ryan tried to be patient, to understand, but then came that night. Dragged to a bar by colleagues, he spotted her across the street, laughing, her arm around a man in a denim jacket. The man kissed her shoulder, and they slipped into a car. The windows steamed up, the car shook. Ryan's feet moved before his mind could. He stopped just short of the vehicle, heart pounding. Claire's eyes met his through the glass. She froze. He turned and ran. Her calls went unanswered days, then weeks. The betrayal wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a moment, a man, a car. That weekend, Ryan called Owen Pierce, his old college buddy, now a sharp divorce lawyer. "She's cheating," Ryan said, voice tight. "She's stringing me along, and I've been sitting here like an idiot." Owen's tone was steady. "What do you want to do?" Ryan stared at their wedding photo, the life Claire had tossed aside. "I want her to feel what she's done." Owen chuckled softly. "Then let's get to work." Ryan didn't yell or beg. He went quiet, dangerously quiet, and began. In a dimly lit diner off I-84, Owen outlined the plan over bitter coffee. Ryan, in a pressed shirt and suppressed rage, listened intently. "She left willingly. She's with other men. That kills spousal support if we play it right," Owen said, sliding over a spreadsheet. "We move the money, pile the debt, split the assets legally. By the time she's in court, she'll wonder if it was worth it." Ryan nodded. "Start it." Phase 1, the savings. Their joint account, $142,000, began to vanish. Ryan funneled it out, $20,000, $25,000, $17,000, into a dummy LLC Owen set up, Peak Analytics Group. The paper trail was spotless. The funds jumped to a Nevada shell company, then offshore to a blind trust in Belize. Claire would need a top-tier accountant to trace it, and even then, her abandonment weakened her claim. Phase 2, the debt. Their home, valued at $510,000, had a $230,000 mortgage. Ryan applied for a second mortgage, citing eco-friendly upgrades. A forged invoice for solar panels secured $190,000. The money hit their account. By Friday, it was gone. The mortgage doubled, and Claire, still tied to the deed, was on the hook for $420,000. Then the credit cards, $17,000 across their Visa and MasterCard. High-end tech, a $12,000 watch, $9,000 in gift cards, all sold through Owen's contact at a discreet pawn shop. Each charge was in both their names, but Claire, lost in Tara's world of soul journeys and late-night clubs, didn't check the statements. Meanwhile, Ryan rebuilt himself. He hit the gym, his frame growing leaner, sharper. He ditched his old hoodie for tailored jackets, started reading psychology, finance himself. Claire's texts went unanswered. She was spiraling, chasing fleeting thrills with men named Jace or Milo, waking up in strange apartments, telling herself it was freedom. But the voicemail she left grew desperate. "I think I messed up, Ryan. You were my anchor." Claire's new life with Tara was losing its shine. The late nights, the men, the endless affirmations about reclaiming her power felt hollow. She woke up one morning on a stranger's couch, her head pounding, unable to piece together the night before. Tara's loft, cluttered with incense and self-help books, was no sanctuary. It was chaos masquerading as freedom. Claire told herself this was growth, but the truth gnawed at her. She missed Ryan's quiet steadiness, the Sunday mornings when he'd make her coffee just the way she liked it. She started texting him more, her messages tinged with regret. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she typed one night, her thumbs trembling. "I just needed to breathe." No reply came. Tara brushed it off, her voice dripping with confidence. "He's manipulating you, Claire. Stay fierce. You're a phoenix rising." But Claire's doubts grew louder. Then the bills arrived. She opened a credit card statement at Tara's kitchen counter and froze. $17,000 in charges she didn't recognize. A $12,000 watch, thousands in electronics, gift cards she'd never seen. Her phone shook in her hand as she checked their joint bank account. The $142,000 savings was gone, replaced by a balance of $87.32. Heart racing, she logged into their mortgage portal. The numbers didn't make sense. A second mortgage for $190,000, ballooning their debt to $420,000. She texted Ryan in a panic. "What did you do? Where's our money? Why are we drowning in debt?" His reply was ice cold. "Check the mortgage. You're welcome to your half." Claire's breath hitched. This wasn't the Ryan she knew, the man who'd stay up watching old rom-coms just to hear her laugh. This was someone else, someone surgical. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived at Tara's loft, addressed to Claire Harper. Inside was a divorce filing, drafted by Owen Pierce. The language was brutal. Due to abandonment, infidelity, and financial recklessness, Mr. Harper seeks an expedited dissolution and equitable division of assets and debts. Claire sank onto Tara's couch, the papers trembling in her hands. "No, this isn't what I wanted," she whispered. Tara handed her a glass of wine. "He's bluffing. Men do this to scare you." But Claire wasn't so sure. Ryan wasn't yelling or pleading. He was dismantling her world. Meanwhile, Ryan was reshaping his. He'd traded his old routine for discipline. Mornings at the gym, evenings with books on strategy and human behavior. His once soft frame was now lean and taut, his wardrobe sharper, his demeanor unyielding. He stopped checking Claire's social media, stopped waiting for her calls. At work, he turned down extra projects, focusing instead on himself. On weekends, he hiked the trails around Mount Tabor, the Portland skyline stretching below him, each step grounding him in a new kind of clarity. Owen kept him updated. The money was safe in the Belize Trust, untouchable. The second mortgage and credit card debts were locked in, legally binding Claire to half. "She'll feel it soon," Owen said over beers at a quiet pub. "The system doesn't reward walkaways." Ryan nodded, but a flicker of unease crossed his mind. Was this revenge, or was it survival? He pushed the thought aside. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling. Tara's goddess energy pep talks couldn't pay the bills. Claire tried calling Ryan again, leaving a voicemail that cracked with desperation. "I messed up. Okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk?" Silence. She checked the accounts again, hoping for a mistake, but the numbers stared back, unrelenting. She confronted Tara. "Did you know he could do this? Wipe out everything." Tara shrugged, scrolling her phone. "You wanted freedom, babe. This is just him playing dirty. Get a lawyer." Claire found one through a budget legal app. Greg, a frazzled attorney with a cheap suit and a nervous tic. He skimmed. "The filing's tight," he said, skimming the papers. "They've got evidence, bank records, photos of you with other guys. It's not looking good." Claire's stomach dropped. "Photos?" Greg nodded. "Yeah, You at clubs with men. They're framing it as abandonment and misconduct. Claire's mind flashed to those blurry nights. Tara, pushing her toward strangers, calling it liberation. She felt sick. The courtroom loomed in her mind, a place she never imagined facing Ryan. What had she started, and how much more would it cost her? The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. Claire stood in a borrowed blazer that hung too loose on her frame, her heels clicking nervously on the linoleum. It was April, the Portland rain streaking the courthouse windows, mirroring the dread pooling in her chest. At 35, she felt older, worn thin by weeks of sleepless nights and mounting bills. Greg, her discount lawyer, fidgeted beside her, his tie slightly crooked, muttering, "Just stick to what we discussed." Across the room, Ryan sat composed, his navy suit sharp against the muted backdrop. At 39, he looked like a man remade. Calm, focused, his jaw set with quiet resolve. Beside him, Owen Pierce, his lawyer, exuded confidence, his smirk practically a signature. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, flipped through documents without looking up. "Community property state," she said, her voice flat. "Assets and debts split 50-50, unless evidence shows fraud, abandonment, or misconduct." Owen stood smoothly. "Your Honor, Mr. Harper was abandoned without warning, emotionally and physically. His spouse engaged in extramarital relationships and mismanaged shared resources. We have bank statements, transfer logs, mortgage records, and photographic evidence." He slid a folder across the table. Photos of Claire at bars, laughing with men, her arm around a stranger in a denim jacket. Claire's throat tightened. She hadn't known anyone was watching. Greg scrambled to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. These accusations are speculative and irrelevant to the financial division." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You contesting the evidence?" Greg hesitated, his glasses slipping. "Not entirely, but then sit." Owen continued, laying out the numbers like a chessboard. House appraised at $510,000. Primary mortgage, $230,000. Secondary mortgage, $190,000. Remaining equity, $90,000. Joint debt, $207,000. Credit cards, lines of credit, all verified. Claire's head spun. $207,000? She could barely afford her phone bill. Greg leaned in, whispering, "We can argue the second mortgage was fraudulent. That LLC, Peak Analytics, it's a front. Do you have proof?" she hissed back. He shook his head. "Not yet." The judge's pen scratched across her notes. "Each party receives $45,000 in equity and $103,500 in debt." Claire's breath caught. $103,500. She didn't have $103. She turned to Ryan, her voice breaking. "You planned this. You hid the money." Ryan's eyes met hers, steady, unyielding. "You broke us, Claire. The moment you climbed into that car." Tears stung her eyes. "I didn't want to destroy us. I just needed me." "You got you," he said, voice low. "And the consequences." The gavel struck. "Divorce granted. Case closed." Claire stumbled out of the courtroom, legs unsteady, the weight of the debt crushing her. Tara waited outside, holding a smoothie, her sunglasses perched on her head. "That was brutal," she said, handing Claire the cup. "I'm ruined, Tara," Claire croaked. "I owe over $100,000. He drained everything." Tara rolled her eyes. "He's playing the victim. Typical. You'll bounce back. Maybe start a GoFundMe for a spiritual reset." Claire stared at her, the words ringing hollow. Tara's hashtags, #reborn, #divine feminine, felt like a script she'd been fed. She turned away, clutching the smoothie until the plastic creaked. That night, Claire drove to her parents' house in Salem, her old hatchback rattling along the highway. She carried a single bag and a lifetime of regret. Her mother opened the door, her face tight with concern. Her father stood behind, arms folded. "I need a place to stay," Claire whispered. "Ryan left me with nothing. I'm messed up." They let her in, but the silence was heavy. Her childhood bedroom was unchanged, faded posters, a high school yearbook on the shelf. She collapsed on the bed, sobs shaking her. The next morning, over weak coffee and toast, her father spoke. "You had a good man, Claire. You let nonsense cloud your head." Her mother was blunter. "You wanted to find yourself? Start now. No money, no drama, just you." Claire nodded, staring at the table, the weight of their words settling in. Ryan, meanwhile, was moving forward. He'd started volunteering at a local community center, where he met Elise, a soft-spoken librarian with no social media presence and a warmth that felt like home. She didn't demand, she simply was. Over coffee one evening, he opened up. "I wasn't proud of it," he admitted. "The accounts, the debt. I made sure she'd feel it. I wanted her to hurt like I did." Elise tilted her head. "Did it fix you?" Ryan paused. "It closed the door. But I'm still figuring out who I am on the other side." The months after the courtroom verdict blurred into a haze of survival for Claire. She woke early, scouring outdated job boards from her parents' creaky desktop in Salem. Her childhood bedroom, now a makeshift office. Afternoons were spent folding clothes at a local thrift shop for minimum wage, her fingers brushing against fabrics that reminded her of the life she'd lost. Evenings brought silence, her parents' disappointed glances heavier than words. At night, she lay awake, replaying Ryan's final words in court. "You got you." And the consequences. The $103,500 debt loomed like a shadow. Default notices for the second mortgage piled up. Credit card companies called relentlessly. She tried selling old jewelry Tara had convinced her to buy, but the pawn shops offered pennies. Tara's texts kept coming, links to manifestation coaches and voice notes about reclaiming her divine spark. But Claire stopped responding. The hashtags felt like lies. Tara's voice a siren song that had led her to ruin. One evening, Claire sat at a library computer, researching debt consolidation. The numbers were brutal. Even with a second job, it would take years to climb out. She glanced at her reflection in the darkened screen, gaunt, tired, a stranger. The freedom she'd chased at Carver Hollow. Meanwhile, Ryan's life was taking shape. He and Elise grew closer, their evenings filled with quiet dinners and long walks through Portland's rose gardens. She was 34, with a gentle laugh and a habit of leaving sticky notes with book quotes on his fridge. He told her everything one night over homemade pasta. "I gutted our accounts," he confessed, staring at his plate. "Piled debt on her. I wanted her to feel what she did to me." Elise set down her glass, her eyes steady. "Did it heal you?" Ryan rubbed his neck. "It gave me control back. But sometimes I wonder if I lost something too, became too cold." Elise reached for his hand. "You didn't destroy her to gloat. You did it to move on. There's a difference." He exhaled, her words easing a knot he hadn't named. For the first time in months, he felt light, like a man stepping into a new chapter. Claire, on the other hand, was sinking. She moved out of her parents' house into a cramped apartment with 2 roommates from a Craigslist ad, a musty pull-out couch her only bed. The thrift shop job barely covered rent, so she picked up weekend shifts at a coffee shop, pouring lattes with a forced smile. Tara had faded, now wrapped up in a new boyfriend, a sound healer with a van and a podcast. Claire was alone, and the solitude forced her to face herself. She bought a cheap notebook and started writing. Not the curated caption she used to post, but raw, jagged thoughts. "I called it empowerment," she wrote one night, pencil shaking, but it was running. "I broke the best thing I had because I believed I needed more." She stopped blaming Ryan, stopped calling him the villain. The truth was uglier. She'd built her own cage. One rainy Sunday, she sat in the coffee shop after a shift, the notebook open in front of her. She wrote a letter she'd never send. "Ryan, I didn't see you until you were gone. I traded your quiet love for chaos, thinking it was freedom. I listened to Tara, to strangers, to anyone but myself. I broke us, and I'm sorry. I hope you're whole again." She stared at the words, then closed the notebook. It wasn't about absolution. It was about admitting what she'd done. Across town, Ryan was settling into a new rhythm. He and Elise rented a small bungalow in Laurelhurst, its porch lined with potted herbs. He'd taken up woodworking, crafting simple shelves that Elise filled with novels. His days felt full, not of vengeance, but of possibility. Yet a small part of him wondered if Claire was okay. Not out of longing, but a faint echo of the man who'd once loved her. Claire's life, though, was a grind. Her roommate's late-night arguments kept her awake, and the debt notices never stopped. She called Greg, her lawyer, hoping for a loophole. Anything we can do about the LLC? The money he moved? Greg sighed. Without hard proof, it's a dead end. The law's on his side. Claire hung up, defeated. She wasn't fighting Ryan anymore. She was fighting herself. 2 years had carved Claire into someone new. Not polished, but honest. Her auburn hair was shorter, her wardrobe simple. Worn jeans, a plain sweater, and a leather journal always tucked in her bag. At 37, she worked 2 jobs, a thrift shop by day, a diner by night, chipping away at the $103,500 debt that still haunted her. The default notices had slowed, but the weight remained. She'd stopped chasing Tara's mantras, stopped seeking validation in likes or fleeting men. In the quiet of her shared apartment, she found a stillness she used to flee. Her journal filled with truths. I thought love was loud, chaotic. I didn't know it was steady until I broke it. She wasn't healed, but she was learning to live with her scars. Across Portland, Ryan's world had bloomed. He and Elise married quietly in their laurel-husked bungalow, its walls now lined with his handcrafted shelves and her books. At 41, he was stronger not just in body but in spirit, thoughtful, grounded, unafraid to set boundaries. Elise, now pregnant, brought a warmth that felt like home. Over coffee one morning, he reflected. I burned the bridge with Claire to survive, he told Elise, tracing the rim of his mug. But it changed me. She smiled softly. You didn't become cruel, Ryan. You became clear. He nodded, grateful for her perspective and for the life they were building. Fate, or perhaps irony, brought them together at a mutual friend's wedding in the Willamette Valley. Claire arrived alone, her dress simple but elegant, her journal in her clutch for comfort. Ryan stood by the vineyard's terrace, his arm around Elise, his hand resting gently on her baby bump. Claire saw them first, her heart tightening, not with jealousy, but with recognition of what she'd lost. When Ryan noticed her, he offered a nod, polite but distant, a gesture of acknowledgement without invitation. The reception hummed with laughter and clinking glasses. Claire stepped onto the patio, a glass of sparkling water in hand, the cool evening air grounding her. She didn't expect Ryan to follow, but his footsteps were soft behind her. Claire, he said, his voice steady. She turned, meeting his eyes, older, sharper, but not unkind. Hey, she replied, softer than she'd ever been with him. Silence hung between them, filled only by crickets and faint music. You look good, she said, glancing at his wedding band. I am, he said. You? She nodded. Better. Still climbing out of the mess I made. He gave a slow nod. I hope it's real. She laughed faintly, no bitterness. It is. No more illusions. Another pause. Claire looked at the stars, then at him. I read once that pain either breaks you or builds you, depending on what you let it teach you. Ryan's brow lifted. What's it teaching you? Her voice softened. It broke me first because I couldn't face my mistakes. Now it's building me because I had to. He exhaled, studying her. You don't owe me anything, Claire. I know, she said, meeting his gaze. But I'm sorry. For what I did, for who I was. His jaw tightened, but his eyes held no anger, only acceptance. I know, and I'm glad you're finding your way, even if it took losing everything. She smiled, raw and real. And you? You found yourself. Ryan shook his head. I didn't find myself. I built myself, piece by piece, after you left. I had to. Claire nodded, the weight of his words settling. That must have been hard. It was, he said, but it made me better. From the terrace, Elise called his name, her voice warm. Ryan glanced back. I should go. Claire nodded. You have a beautiful life, Ryan. Hold it tight. He smiled, gentle but final. I will. As he turned, Claire spoke once more. Ryan. He looked over his shoulder. I didn't know love was quiet until I lost yours. His eyes lingered, a flicker of the past in them, but no resentment. He nodded once, then walked back to Elise, his hand finding hers. Claire stayed on the patio, the breeze drying the tears she hadn't noticed. She didn't cry for him or for what might have been. She cried for the woman she'd been and for the one she was becoming. The music swelled, and she stepped back into the crowd, carrying her journal and a fragile, hard-won piece. The story ends with both Claire and Ryan on their separate paths, each rebuilt from their own ruins, leaving the reader to reflect on the cost of choices and the power of facing them.